Okay, hello and welcome. It's my first attempt to do a live stream on YouTube, and today I'd like to talk about IELTS speaking questions for the current season. Okay, so the stream has started, and I'm also sending notifications to my subscribers so that some of them might join. Okay, good. Now, I think there's going to be a delay of around 30 seconds. And after this, I'd like to talk about their IELTS speaking questions. I need to turn off the sound so that I do not repeat myself. Okay, so in this live stream, I'm going to to analyze some of the questions for the current season. And how do we receive these questions? So there are around 3 million students every year, 3 million candidates who take IELTS. And after this, they report the questions that they had in their speaking test on some forums, well, on some websites. There are also special applications which collect such topics. And after this, we receive the questions. So we can know the topics and we can know the questions before the exam. Okay, these questions change. Well, there are some of these questions change once in 4 months. So in January, then in May, and in September, on the 1st of January, on the 1st of May, and on the 1st of September. But every time there are two exam booklets. And one of them is the old booklet from the old season. It's half of the topics from the old season. And there's also a new booklet with the new topics. So today we're going to analyze the questions from the exam booklet. Again, this is they were reported by students. This is very close to the actual exam questions, and according to well, my students, whenever they take their speaking tests, they receive exactly the same topics and exactly or almost exactly the same questions. That's why I believe it's worth thinking about what to answer, brainstorming some vocabulary for these questions, and yeah, and some ideas and maybe grammar and so on. Right. So the questions that appeared this season on the 1st of January, they will be in use from January till April. Oops, sorry, we don't need those topics. From January till April 2021, and then they will also be in use from May till August 2021. So today we're just going. I believe we're going to talk about only half of these topics. I mean, half of the topics from January till April. This half is going to also continue through May and August. Okay. There is another half which was used last season and is going to be in use this season. So for those of you who are already subscribed to my channel, by the way, if you still haven't subscribed to my channel, do it now, because I'm going to do such live streams regularly in the future, and I believe you can benefit from them in your IELTS preparation. Okay, so yes, I see there are two people watching, only two, but maybe more people are going to watch the recording then. Please write in the commentaries like where you're from, city and country, and what's your target band score. Okay, so and throughout this live stream, if you have any commentaries, also please write them in the comments section. From time to time, I'm going to be looking at the commentaries, and I will answer your questions. So whenever there are any questions, please feel free to ask them. Now, for those who are watching the recording, You can also ask your questions. Just write them in the commentaries under the video, and I will start by answering these questions in my next live stream, which I believe is going to be next weekend. Okay, so the first topic, that's farming, and for this topic, I already made a video, and I'll just put a link here in the commentaries, and there's just a separate video. There are two questions. Do you think farming is important? And have you ever visited a farm? Okay. So when you hear questions like, do you think something is important? One thing that you can do for your lexical resource, it's to paraphrase the word important. So if you say something like, do you think farming is important? Yes, I think farming is important. Well, basically, you're just repeating the question. You're repeating the keywords in the question. And for your lexical resource, ideally, you need to paraphrase the keywords. So instead of important, there's a whole bunch of synonyms that you can use. And these words can be like crucial, significant, or paramount, or vital, and so on. So you can say it is of the utmost importance, and so on. So just paraphrase the word, paraphrase the word farming. Okay, you can watch the like after this stream, you can also watch this separate video about farming, and you can find some other details about it. Now, you could mention also, for example, so you can also use some collocations. For instance, organic farming is of vital importance in this day and age because, well, we all need to be healthy. So you can use some collocations like battery farming or organic farming. Okay, predominantly due to the fact that it is very important. Well, it is crucial to eat healthy and nutritious produce. So produce, this is like kind of food. Okay, the second question, have you ever visited a farm? Okay, so to increase your grammatical range score, you can use a modal verb with perfective infinitive, and you can say, oh yes, I have. It must have been. So as if you're sure, but not exactly. It must have been around some time ago. It must have been around 3 years ago. Instead of saying it was 2 years ago, you can say something like, it must have been around 2 years ago. Okay, Alexandra, I can see a commentary. I'm from Kirov. I'd like to have band 6. Okay, well, that's quite realistic. So I hope today's live stream is going to help you. Also, these are the questions that are going to be used until August. So you will have exactly the same topics and pretty much the same questions if you take your exam until August. Okay, so have you ever visited a farm? So the first thing you can say here is it must have been around some time ago, and you can also say a fortnight. It must have been around a fortnight ago. Fortnight, it means 2 weeks. So if it's applicable in your situation, it doesn't have to be true, right? So you can say it must have been around a fortnight ago. Fortnight is an uncommon lexical item. So you also kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only do you increase your grammar score by using a modal verb with a perfect infinitive, but also you use an uncommon lexical item, which helps you to increase your score in lexical resource, in vocabulary. Okay, so if you have any other ideas, what you can say to answer these questions, please write them in the commentaries. I can just read your commentaries only after 30 seconds, around 30 seconds, so I do not see them immediately. Okay, so the second topic, it's rest. So the first topic was farming, and the second topic, it's rest. So when you talk about rest, you can use some expressions like, so to have a rest, or to relax. But you can also say something like to unwind or to recharge my batteries. So these would be good expressions. To recharge my batteries. Okay. So, and when an examiner asks you, how often do you take a rest? Here's a strategy that I offer. So whenever there is a how often do you question, what you can do is just say, well, let's use third conditional here. If you had asked me this question, let's say 5 years ago, I would have said, and you say something, for example, I would have said that I did it once in a blue moon. Okay. Having said that, or however, now I do it, and you say something like I do it more often. So, but you can also you can use third conditional, and you can even use inversion with third conditional, and it will sound like this. So you can do this with any how often do you type of question in part one. Most likely there will be one question like this, maybe not for the topic rest, but for another topic. Okay, so it will be like this. So if you like this idea, please put thumbs up, or just put a plus in the commentaries. So had you asked me this question, let's say 5 years ago, I would have said, so this is third conditional with inversion, that I did it once in a blue moon. Once in a blue moon, that's an idiom. So again, you kill two birds with one stone. You use an advanced construction, third conditional, inversion, and you also use an idiom. Okay, once in a blue moon. Now, having said that, well, this is a perfect participle, but it's also an advanced linking word, a synonym for however. Having said that, now I have to do it more often. Say something else after this, maybe one more sentence, because I'm not as young as I used to be. That was also something for your grammatical range. It increases your grammatical range to a certain extent. So, because now I have to do it more often. Okay, so that's a possible way of how you can deal with this question. You can also say like every couple of hours I do this. Well, now I do this every couple of hours, or no more than twice a day. Or you can say only when I need to recharge my batteries do I take a rest. Something like this. Okay. Okay. Let's see. All right. So the next question here. If you have any questions or any other ideas, also write them in the commentaries. From time to time, I look at the commentaries and I see what you write there. So, do you take a nap when you have a rest? So, to take a nap, ideally, you need to paraphrase that, and probably instead of take a nap, you can say take a cat nap. Okay. So, do you take a nap? And you will say yes or no. Well, probably it's easier to say yes. And if you say yes, you can say something like, it enables me to get twice as much done. So then it will be a causative construction. You see, if you follow my method, just after 4 part 1 questions, you've already used so many grammar structures. So the examiner will understand that, oh, that your grammatical range is very wide. And if everything is fine with your accuracy, then you'll have a high score in grammar. That's quite easy. So what you can say, it enables me to have or to get twice as much done. Okay, that's a possible way. Or you can say, it improves my stamina, or it's like a system reboot for me, or it prevents burnout. it restores alertness. So when you are alert, so you're more attentive. It reduces the risk of some kind of diseases, and then here it depends on what kind of medical vocabulary you know. So if you know respiratory related, maybe it's not very relevant here, or heart diseases, and you can give some examples, especially if you're a doctor or a medical student and you know some vocabulary here. Okay. Or you could say no and say that if you sleep during the day, then you're likely to have insomnia, or you can say call it sleeplessness the following night, right? Or you could say that you feel not very well, you feel disoriented. So you can say, having woken up, I feel disoriented. Or you could say drowsy and discombobulated. Drowsy, it's like sleepy, and discombobulated is like you don't know what to do. So you can use it if you answer the next question. How do you feel after taking a nap? So I really recommend these two words for this particular question. Drowsy and discombobulated. Okay, just these two words will already be enough to impress the examiner. Or you could say, I feel groggy. That's another word for some kind of sleepy, or I feel like a zombie. So you can say it makes me drowsy and discombobulated throughout the rest of the day. Okay, so these are the ideas that you can use to answer the questions about rest. So if you have any questions, please write them in the commentaries. I look at all your commentaries once in maybe 2 minutes, every 2 minutes, and then if you have any questions or any other ideas, just add them in the commentaries. We will discuss this. Okay, good. So, right. So let's move on to the next topic. Trees. Okay. Now it would be a nice idea to think about what kind of trees do you know in English. And anyway, even if you don't have the topic trees in your speaking part 1, it would be ideal to know a couple of trees, because you can mention something in part 2 that you were walking, or here's a good word, sauntering. So to saunter, it's an advanced synonym for to walk. Okay, and so you can use this word for the topic trees if you're describing a park. So I like sauntering. What do you like doing in your free time? I like sauntering. What kind of transport do you prefer? Well, I don't like using transport. I prefer sauntering. So you can use it in any speaking test, virtually in any speaking test. I used this word in the speaking test, and I got a 9 in IELTS speaking. Well, that's not the only reason why I got a 9, but I believe this is one of them. Okay, so this is a C2 level word that that means to walk slowly in a relaxed manner. Walk in a park, and it can be in either when you talk about trees, and you mention a park, or when you're mentioning some kind of a walk in your speaking part 2. Okay, now talking about trees, please write in the chat box what kind of trees do you know in English. So I will wait, because I will see your commentaries only after 30 seconds. And some other collocations that you could use here, that's probably unspoiled air. So I will not mention the trees yet, because I want you to give some commentaries in the chat box. So unspoiled air. Or you can say, so you want to go, you live in the city, for example, and you want to escape from the city. So you want to escape from the There's concrete jungle. Concrete jungle. Okay. So I don't see any commentaries in the chat box. All right. So, well, let's say there are coniferous trees and deciduous trees. Coniferous trees are like, the easiest one would be fir tree or pine tree. I would recommend you to mention juniper. So if you're from Russia, most of my students are from Russia, but not all, then that's можжевельник. I think you'll surprise the examiner if you know this word. So that's an advanced one. I hope I spelled it correctly in Russian. Okay, so that's a kind of a coniferous tree. Talking about deciduous trees, well, you could mention, so the one, the trees that could be mentioned are that's poplar, maple. In Russia, that's birch tree. What else? Oak tree. And if you mention oak, you can also mention acorns. So there, like if you're describing an oak tree, you can say with some acorns around it. So acorns are kind of fruit of the oak tree. Like so, in for the Russian students, that's zholut. Okay, so right. Okay, what else? Well, maybe that will be enough. If you well, if you have any other ideas, just write this in the commentaries section. Okay. Then you might also want to mention some bushes, even though you're asked about trees, but you can also mention bushes at the same time. So you could probably mention, the most common one would be rose bush, but I won't give you many points. But there is a thing that is called privet bush. Privet bush is very popular. You can Google it and see a picture. It's very popular in Great Britain. It actually takes a lot of care and attention. You need to trim it a lot, and then after you trim it, it looks like a wall. You probably saw it in British movies, in British films. So yeah, it's like it's kind of a bush that looks like a wall after you take good care of it. All right. So, do you like trees? That's a question. Yes, you can say I. For example, if you want a paraphrase for I like, don't repeat I like in your speaking test. Instead, it's better to say something like I'm fond of something, or I am keen on something. You can you can be a bit humorous. You can say some jokes. You say I'm keen on breathing, and that's why I adore trees. Okay, so there's another word, I adore. Or you could just say I go nuts for trees. I go nuts for trees. And just you can say that they are a stunning part of our natural landscape, right? They are a great decoration outdoors. They provide us with oxygen, or they absorb carbon dioxide. They are giant humidifiers. So some of these ideas, and just develop them as complex sentences. All right. So they curb air pollution, or they even noise pollution, right? So that's what you can mention here. Now, so Alexander, where can I find a list of topics for all parts for 2021? If you look at, if I find it quickly now, I will send you the link. You can find it in my VK group. Okay, I think I'll just try to find the direct link. Yes. So I'll copy the link here. So by following this link, you can receive the list of all the part 1, part 2, and part 3 questions for the current season. Okay. Now, would you like to live in a place that has lots of trees? So just ideas will be the same as for do like trees. They clean the air, they let us breathe freely. They hold special meaning in my culture, if you want. And so, and then probably you would want to say that, yes, I would love to. Do you think places with trees attract more visitors than places with few trees? Okay, now here's the thing. Instead of saying yes and no during a speaking test, it would be better if you said something more advanced. So instead of yes, you can say something like absolutely, undeniably, well, undoubtedly, something like this. But you can also say, I'm leaning towards a positive answer. So if you want to say yes or almost yes, you can say I'm leaning towards a positive answer. Or if you want to say no, you can say I'm leaning towards a negative answer. Okay. Yes. So Raghav Chandel, hi, welcome, welcome. So we're discussing these the questions of the current IELTS speaking that are used all over the world for the current season from January till April, and they will also be used during the next season from May to August 2021. All right, so do you like to go to a forest? Well, most people will probably say yes, because this is a place where you can, what can you do? You can saunter, right? So again, you can use this word that means to walk slowly, or you can say this is where I can. There is a golden opportunity for me to collect my thoughts. Okay, or it enables me to enjoy the unspoiled air. Okay. Okay, or what else? Well, a walk in the forest makes my skin glow with health. So here's a good expression that you can use here. So forests are the lungs of the city. Well, usually they're parks, but still you can also say that. But you could also say that you don't like going to the forest. I can't stand going to the forest because I hate mosquitoes and other insects, creepy crawlies, or I'm afraid of snakes, if this is applicable. Okay. Now, is there a forest near your hometown? Okay, you can say yes, there is one in close proximity to my hometown, or you could say in the immediate vicinity of. So in the immediate vicinity of my hometown, of my home, or you could say, oh, but these two expressions can be used, for example, in IELTS academic writing task 1 to describe maps. But the next expression is only for speaking. It's to spoken. You can say it's within the spitting distance of my house. It means very near, and you can use this in speaking, right? And if you still haven't said that you go sauntering there, you can say it now. So there is a forest within the walking distance or in close proximity to my house, and this is the place where I go sauntering whenever I have a moment to spare. Okay, or you could also mention that there are a plethora of urban forests in your hometown. Okay, or you could say that you live in a deserted area and the nearest forest is quite a long way from your hometown. Okay, now, where can one find trees or forests in your country? So, well, here you can use some compass language, like in the western, eastern, southern, northern part of my country, or throughout my country. You could say on the eastern side of some kind of peninsula. Yes, so peninsula, like if you live in Crimea, for example. Right. Or near every big city, something like this, and just add some more details. So you can say, well, virtually, you can find forests virtually in any region of Russia, if you're from Russia, and most notably in the mountains and in the western part of the country. Fortunately, my country is full of trees and forests. Okay, so that's what you can say if you answer this question. Now, did you ever climb trees when you were a child? Okay, so, well, you can either say yes or no. It's up to you. And you can say it was one of the most exciting or thrilling experiences I've ever had. It was real fun to do it. It was a great part of being a kid for me. Or you can say, when you're mentioning that you were a child, you can say, when I was in my formative years. That's a good expression. When I was in my formative years. Okay, you could also say, when I was knee-high to a grasshopper. It doesn't sound very natural, though, but if you're not aiming at a very high band score, I think it will do, well, it won't harm you much, but it might increase your score. So when I was knee-high to a grasshopper. Okay, then the next one is, have you ever, okay, do I have a Facebook account? Well, I have a personal Facebook account, but I don't use it for work. Yuri Kondratiev, you can just search it and you can find me. Then stone throw distance. There's an expression, a stone throw away. Yes, that will be quite applicable here. When I was adolescent, that's about teenagers. Yes, when you were a teenager, you can also say that. Okay, then have you ever planted a tree? Well, you can say I did it once in my childhood together with my father or with my grandfather. So you can say I must have planted over a dozen trees already. Must have planted, so with modal verb and a perfect infinitive. And or you can say I do it every spring. And so, and it is one of the most powerful and affordable ways to make a personal difference for the environment. Okay. Now, this was the topic trees. The next topic that I would like to discuss, that's mathematics. Okay, and talking about mathematics, you could use some expressions, some mathematical terms, like equations, maybe, or calculus. This is the type of math that you study in high school, and then if you go to university and have study maths there, you also study it probably there. Okay, now you can also say to add. This is when it's a plus, and it's to subtract. This is when it's a minus. To multiply. Multiplication table, this is what you learn in elementary school. And to divide. Okay, there is also a video on my channel with one of my students. She answers the questions about maths, and I give her some other expressions too. I think you can You can also watch it on my channel. Well, I won't post the link now, but there are not so many videos on my channel, and you can just find it. It's called IELTS Speaking Mock Test Mathematics Part 1 Mathematics. Yes, arithmetics. You can use this. There's a better expression. It's called the 3 R's of education. 3 R's of education. That there was a mayor of London, and he was illiterate. He couldn't read or write. But once, maybe it was somewhere in the 18th century, maybe early, I don't remember. But once he proposed a toast, and he said, "Let's drink for the 3 R's of education." And these 3 R's were reading, writing, and arithmetics. So writing doesn't start with R, it starts with W, but the sound is R. And arithmetics was pronounced arithmetics at this time. So he was impressed that all these 3 subjects started with an R, which was not the case. But after this, mathematics is one of the 3 R's of education, the 3 basic subjects that you learn in elementary school or in primary school. So the first question, well, you might have, your questions might be slightly different, but the first question that we have here is math difficult for you to learn? And you could say, yeah, I remember this topic was also used in 2019, and one of my students, he said, well, for most of my classmates, it was a piece of cake, but it wasn't my cup of tea. So I think this concentration of idioms was too high. But you can say it was a piece of cake for me, right? If it was easy, it was a piece of cake. But this idiom can only be used for speaking, not for writing. So it was a piece of cake. Or you could also say, if it was difficult, you can say it was a daunting task. Or you could say it was a formidable challenge. Okay. So maybe you can mention that you had some well, abilities, or studying mathematics requires persistence and patience, which I lack, or it takes plenty of effort. Right. You could also say that I have a real knack for mathematics. So that's a good expression also. I have a real knack for mathematics. Okay, then the next thing, do you think maths is difficult? I think it's the same as, is math difficult for you to learn? This is just a question that was reported by different students, and so it sounds very similar. And you will only be asked, is math difficult for you to learn, or do you think math is difficult? And the ideas and vocabulary that you can use here are pretty much the same. Okay, okay. Arduous, okay, to be, where to find videos. So you're on the channel, just open this channel, IELTS TV, and there is a section, videos, and you'll find about 20 videos, I think. So to be honest, it's not my cup of tea. Yes, if you say to be honest, you can also say to be brutally honest. That will be a good advanced collocation. It will be even better than to be honest. Arduous, okay, so it requires hard work. Grueling task, okay, good. I have a knack for it. Yeah, that's, I also said it, and now I saw it in your commentaries. Okay, because I open the commentaries from time to time then. When did you start learning maths? So again, you can say it must have been around. So if, for example, if you're for example 27, you can say it must have been around 20 years ago, or if you are 22, you can say it must have been around 15 years ago, something like this. Or you can say in my formative years, also, if you still haven't said it, when I was knee-high to a grasshopper, or what else? So in my early childhood, or when I was a preschooler, that's a good word. When I was a preschooler, okay, or soon after my toddlerhood. So in your early childhood, soon after my toddlerhood. It's quite advanced. Okay, then do you like math? So be prepared for what's wrong with toddlerhood. Okay, now do you like math? And you can say that I'm fond of it, I'm keen on it, or I can't stand it, because not only is it complex, but it is also interesting. Or it's like a vast universe of ideas for me, predominantly due to the fact that mathematics can explain virtually everything, or it helps me to indulge in some interesting theoretical calculations. Okay. Right, or you could mention some mathematical terms here, like I really love equations, linear equations, so like solving mathematical problems, and so some sections in mathematics. This is what you can also say. Okay, so I see there are 5 people watching right now, and if you have any other commentaries or questions, please feel free to write them in the comments section in the chat box. Then I will try to answer them. And if you're watching the recording, then you can just write your questions in the comments also, and I will start my next live stream by answering these questions. Okay, so who taught you math? I will most likely will say like my elementary school teacher, maybe my mother, my father, my early childhood educator in kindergarten. But instead of just saying my father taught me math, you can use an emphatic construction here. It was my father, or my elementary school teacher, my primary school teacher, or somebody who taught me maths. And then here you can also mention I learned some basic principles in mathematics, and you can use these expressions. I learned how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. I learned basic shapes like square, triangle, what else? Circle, oval, rectangle, whatever there is. So I started understanding quantities. Right, I could understand the value of different denominations of money. I started learning fractions. Soon after, I learned the multiplication table. So a fraction, that's decimal fraction, for example. And then, do you like to use a calculator? So, well, you can either say yes or no, because, well, if you say yes, then you can say that because it allows me to solve complex problems quickly and efficiently, or quickly and in an efficient manner, that it reduces the complexity of solving mathematical problems, or not only does it make my life easier, but it also saves my time. Or you could mention that it prevents me from thinking, so, or it renders me lazy. So here's a good word. It makes me lazy, but you can also say it renders me lazy. So render is, in this case, it's a synonym for to make. And you can also you can also say that here. Okay. Now let me look at the commentaries. How to use collocations in answer explicitly. Okay, well, in my practice, because students know the questions before the exam, so I teach them the collocations just before the exam. This is for speaking. And for writing, there are also more or less common topics. And for these common topics, you also learn collocation. This is part of vocabulary drilling that takes place in the classroom. So, this is how you just learn these collocations, or you pick them up by reading newspapers or listening to watching videos, listening to native speakers, and so on. So through your real practice, you can pick them up, or you can just learn them as part of your preparation. Writing is a low scoring module. Yes, exactly. We will not talk about writing today, but it is the hardest part for most candidates. The simple reason why, I can just quickly answer this, is just we spend writing much less than speaking, reading, or listening. So every person, or almost every person, spends writing very little part of his or her life. And this is the reason why writing is the hardest part. Okay, so the next topic that we'll discuss today, that will be museums. So do you think museums are important? Again, you can if you hear the word important, you can paraphrase it with words like crucial, significant, paramount, whatever, of the utmost importance. And why? Because it introduces people to something. Like if it's a museum, then it introduces people to major and minor events of the world and everyday life, showing how people used to live in other civilizations throughout human history. Okay, so then you can also give some example of a science and technology museum, or children's and youth museums, and you can say something that these museums do, like they encourage kids and teenagers to learn by doing, or whatever, give youngsters a chance to touch, feel, and handle materials, something like this. Then talking about museums in general, you might also want to mention some vocabulary related to museums, and one of the things that stands out here is probably the word exhibit or artifact. I don't know why Microsoft Word doesn't like the word artifact. It's spelled correctly, so maybe it should be plural. No. Anyway, it's spelled correctly. Or there are curators in the museum. Okay, and well, there's some basic vocabulary. Many museums in your hometown. So, for example, I come from St. Petersburg, Russia, and my city, you can say, is steeped in history. So that's the reason why there are lots and lots of museums in this hometown. Okay, or you can also say at every turn, there is something to catch your eye, and museums. That's one of the things. These are some of the things that attract tourists from around the globe. Okay. You can also say that museums enable people to develop a deeper understanding of the people and places that have shaped society today. Okay. Then, do you often visit museums? Well, most likely, if you have the topic museums, you will not have the topic, what was our first topic today? No, the second one, rest. So if you, and how often do you visit museums? Here's what you can do. Or do you often visit museums? You can use the same technique here. You can use third conditional with inversion. Then you can also use once in a blue moon. Having said that, so it can sound something like, well, had you asked me this question, let's say 5 years ago, I would have said that I did it once in a blue moon. Having said that, now I enjoy visiting museums and art galleries a lot because they're a great way to spend time with friends and family, learning something new about different time periods and discussing thoughts and opinions with each other. What's more, museums make me think, which I really like, and art galleries clear my mind and boost my own creativity. Okay, but you start with third conditional with inversion, an idiom, perfective participle, and advanced linking word, and then you can say whatever you want until the examiner stops you. So don't expect that the examiner is going to silently listen to you for 5 minutes. No, this is not going to happen, but just say 2 or 3 sentences. Okay, so for this, you can use just this strategy. Something like in the past I used to visit it once in a blue moon, but just say it with a third conditional. And right now, I do it more or less often. Okay, let's look at your commentaries. Yes, relics, souvenirs. Okay, these are nice words also. Okay, so when was the last time you visited a museum? So you can say it must have been around some time ago. It must have been like around a fortnight ago, around 2 years ago. It must have been around 2 years ago before the pandemic, or a year and a half ago, right before the pandemic. Okay. Then, did you go to any museums when you were a child? So, when I was knee-high to a grasshopper, I used to go to museums every other weekend because my parents took me there. And what I saw there, it appealed to my curiosity. It made me think. It explained how things work. It encouraged me to learn by doing, and so on. So, or you could just say no and explain why. Then, why is it boring for children to go to museums? Okay, you can say that for them, going to, the atmosphere in the museum is like at a funeral. So this is the primary reason why children are not interested in visiting museums and art galleries. And most of the objects are kept out of sight. There is no fun in the museum, and they have no idea of what they're looking at. And on top of that, they're not allowed to touch anything. And so above all, the artifacts are boring. Okay. So how can we make museums interesting for children? Well, for example, you can say you can organize some what are they called? So something like a treasure hunt with museum objects as treasures, where you can give them a map as soon as they get to the museums and ask them to find certain rooms or items on it, right? So you kind of you can turn a visit into a game, and you can describe this in your answer, or something like this. Right. So let's take one more topic. TV programs. What types of TV programs do you like to watch? So just mention one type of programs like reality shows or chat shows or cookery shows, DIY programs. So when people have to repair something in their house, for example, that's DIY. And speak more about this. Okay, then what benefits can people get from watching foreign TV programs? Well, obviously they can, here's a good expression that you can use in many different questions, that they can broaden their horizons. Okay, then they can stay informed and up to date with what is going on in the world. They can increase their knowledge and become more aware of the world around them. So they can open up the world like this. So something about broadening their horizons, just say a couple of sentences about it, give an example. And well, the key here for me, would be broadening horizons. So in your country, is it possible for you to watch any TV programs in English? Of course it is. Now we have YouTube, right? Or we have cable and satellite TV. So if you want to practice some vocabulary, you can also mention cable and satellite TV. So, or we can have unfettered access, means unlimited access or direct access. Unfettered access to internet, where we can watch episodes of some TV programs on Netflix or whatever, or on YouTube, and things like that. Okay. So, do you have any other question? Okay, let me look at the commentaries. Culinary, yes, culinary or cookery shows. They can also be. Can you praise my overall English band by watching the chat here? I've never appeared before for IELTS. No, I cannot evaluate your level of English just by looking at your short phrases that you wrote, because for an examiner, it's also necessary to listen to you for 11 to 14 minutes in speaking, and then to look at your writing. And then reading and listening are also evaluated separately, so it's impossible to evaluate. Where are you from, by the way? Well, I believe you you will hear this 30 seconds after I ask this. So now, if you think that such live streams are useful for you, can you please put a plus in the chat box in the commentary section? Okay, and I guess next weekend we'll continue with other speaking part 1 topics for the current season. So there are some more topics that we still haven't covered, and they will be topics like singing, getting up early. For getting up early, there is a separate video that I recorded in January. Reading, scenery, happiness, names, and New Year. So, all from India. Okay. So usually people from India, they have their vocabulary is quite wide, but their pronunciation is not very clear. That's why some of them might have a problem scoring high in their speaking test, just in one of the criteria. One of the criteria is pronunciation. So in speaking, there are 4 evaluation criteria. That's fluency and coherence, then vocabulary is called lexical resource, grammar, and pronunciation. So 25% of your mark, that's pronunciation, and it should be. You don't have to speak without an accent during your speaking test, but you need to make sure that your pronunciation is clear. And from my experience, this is what people from India, this is their major problem, is well, speaking in an understandable way. Of course, it's not a problem for everyone, but well, generally this is what I have noticed. Okay, so thank you all for participation today. It was my first attempt, and I hope we'll continue this in the future. Now, if you have questions or you have ideas for future live streams, please do this in the commentaries under the video after this video is finished. Or if you have some other questions that you would like me to answer in the next live stream, just also write them here. And I'll start my next live stream by answering your questions. Okay, so thanks again for your participation.